I lived in New York for 30 years. And when I moved to Mexico during the pandemic and lived in Tulum for 2 years and in a mangrove forest on land owned by the Mayas across the street from the beach, which was right adjacent to Siancán, the UNESCO site biosphere. It was a real eye-opening for me. And I didn't know how I could have lived in New York City for 30 years, for so long, without the nature immersion that I was getting in Tulum in Mexico, living in a mangrove forest on a cenote. Part of what I've been doing in the last 5 years is also committing more of my time, energy, and work and dedicating it towards preserving our planet and supporting those who advocate for healing humanity and our planet. And that journey started when I left New York, rented a treehouse with a solar powered treehouse with its own kitchen and private bathroom and situated right on a cenote, and started taking plant medicine for about 14 months and was in a 14-month dieta, and really had the time to not just focus on healing myself, but also being more in sync and in tune with nature.
Yeah, so maybe you don't love New York so much. But yeah, I know I feel that I'm starting to live in the city and I'm like I feel very disconnected from nature. What are some ways that you get out into nature more, that you make time for nature, and then you suggest other people can do as well, even if they can't maybe move to Tulum, but
Even right now, so I'm doing this podcast in a friend's basement apartment in Bushwick, Brooklyn, but there's a backyard and there's a big, beautiful tree in the backyard. And there's squirrels and there's birds and I think it's a large mulberry tree. So many birds go there and forage. And so even in your own backyard, you can have some time with nature and commune with the birds and the trees. And I realized also how I lasted in New York so long is I've always lived close to the river and I've always walked by the river. The parks in New York are amazing. At one point, I lived like a block from the Central Park. So I was there all the time, where I would be there reading books on the bench and just hanging out on the grass, being by myself, writing, even when you don't have to be busy when you're in New York. And that's, I think, whether you live in Tulum or in New York City, you have to find time for yourself. You have to find time to regenerate and also contemplate. Contemplation is very important, to have alone time to really ponder what your purpose is and what you should be doing that day. And also meditation, how you want to face the world and interact with the world, whether or not you want to. And in New York, it's hard to avoid that because you're constantly faced with a lot of people in public transportation, walking down a sidewalk, or anything else. But I really realized that's when it really tests your ability to stay mentally and physically strong, is by being disciplined and also carving out time for yourself.
when do you find for you personally is the best time to carve out that pondering time? Is it early in the morning? Is it right before bed? Is it within intervals throughout the day?
I definitely think it's early morning. I'm a very much of a morning person, and I usually wake up with the sunrise, whether I'm in Tulum or Burning Man or West Coast or in New York. And I actually, in the past 5 years, I would avoid scheduling morning calls because I really needed that time for myself to do yoga, to meditate, to do my rituals like having tea and making my own ginger and turmeric tea. And all that time is actually like strengthening you and preparing you, and also avoiding what's being bombarded all over the news right now. Because it's not that I avoid the news, I don't absorb it in video format or on TV because I feel like it's over dramatized. And I prefer to read the news and then figure out myself how I want to react to it without people telling me, oh, you should be upset at this. Because depending on which channel you're listening to, they want you to be upset at different things or opposing views. And it's like a mental mind fuck, if I'm allowed to say that. I think so. Also, being centered and grounded and knowing how you stand on things is also important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel the same way. I even reading the news, it can sometimes tell you which way. You can tell they're trying to skew you in one way. But yeah, going back to, I would love to talk more about your experience in Tulum and what kind of an effect that had on you and your life's path and what your mission really is in life.
So I was invited to join a clubhouse in New York City for Habitas. And I was invited to see the clubhouse before it opened. And I saw several friends there whose company I really enjoyed and who I respect. So when we were walking around, I said, are we doing this? Are we joining this clubhouse when it's still just being painted and under construction? And we all said yes. And this clubhouse was Habitas, and Habitas was founded in Tulum, and they have an eco resort there. So part of the activities and the perks of being part of this clubhouse was you get to join this retreat that they do every year on the ocean, on the beach in the Caribbean Sea, actually, and be immersed in nature. And so that was the first time I experienced the alternative healing from breath work, holotropic breath work, to energy healing, to sound healing, and so on and so forth. That was programmed throughout the week. And you do feel incredibly different and rejuvenated afterwards. And in this particular situation with the breath work, I actually brought up trauma I hadn't processed in 17 years. And people said that sometimes happens. And next thing I knew, this trauma from 17 years ago came up just from breath work. And I started bawling and started crying for 6 hours. And afterwards, people said, you look so different. Your voice is different. Your posture is different. My energy was different because I guess this particular trauma made me so closed in and made me have a more masculine demeanor and energy. And all of a sudden I was able to let go and surrender and let it go. And it made a huge difference. So when the pandemic shut down everything, and in New York City, if you don't have nightlife, if you don't have restaurants, if you don't have culture, and you're stuck at home, it's not much. And then they were trying to also dictate how much time you spend outside. And of course, the parks are limited. So all of a sudden you have to be 6 feet apart. And so out of the blue, I just decided to look up what's in Tulum. And there was on Airbnb, an open place where I could book a treehouse for $1,000 for a month. And at the time, my son was actually class of 2020, and his prom was canceled, his graduation was canceled, and he turned 18 while we were in lockdown, and he was so sad and depressed. And I said, I got to change this. I want to change our environment. So I wound up like booking that treehouse for the month and booked a flight for my son and my dog, which we never traveled with. This dog was a city dog, his first time on a plane, and then went to Tulum. And my intention was just go there for a month to reset us. And I wound up like going back with my son after dropping him off in college and getting rid of the contents of my apartment and gave everything away, and then went back to Tulum with my dog.
So are you based there now or?
Yeah, so I consider New York and Tulum still my home base. I work with the Maya bioregion, Sagrada Bioregion Maya, which is a group of Mayan chiefs and elders and leaders who are preserving their region. And since 2020, actually, I was producing live streams that would call attention to the fragility of our ecosystems, and that produced donations for Bye Bye Plastic. And I did that after weeks of walking the beaches at sunrise and sunset, and seeing all of the plastic that would wash up on the beaches, because the hotels at the time were closed, so they had no people cleaning up the beaches, and so it would just keep piling up. And then I would witness the turtles coming in to lay their eggs, and 45 days later the eggs hatch, and then the baby turtles would get stuck on the seaweed that was blended with the plastics on the shores and couldn't get over. And so the pelicans and the seagulls would come and eat them, because the goal for these baby turtles was to get to the water before sunrise. And so all of a sudden I found myself like trying to find the turtles inside the seaweed and the plastic and bringing them chest deep into the ocean and releasing them so they wouldn't be eaten. So in that moment, I really realized the massive toll of plastic. It's not just, and that was before the studies were coming up that it would be in breast milk, that it's in placenta, that's now in our brains. And at that moment, this was July, August 2020, it was just that it was affecting how baby turtles were even able to cross over after their parents swam thousands of miles to lay their eggs on those beaches. And for these baby turtles to be prevented from going to the sea because a pile of plastic and seaweed was in front of them was like distressing.
Yeah, definitely. And it really goes to show how much plastic's in this world. And it feels inescapable, right? Like you said, the microplastics are everywhere in our brain now. They're finding like trace levels and like everybody. Is there anything you're doing or anything you suggest to reduce your microplastic intake or just be more cautious or aware about our current situation?
So when I was still actually in New York, living in Brooklyn, I would go to a hot yoga class 3 times a week, and I would buy a bottle of water. Even that simple act of switching from 3 bottles of plastic bottled water that you buy from your gym or yoga studio to a bottled water that I would prepare at home in a reusable bottle is a huge difference. You know what I mean? So 3 bottles a week times 4 per month, all of a sudden times 52 weeks. And it's crazy how much we consume even in the act of drinking a bottle of water after a workout. So that's how I started and started reducing my carbon footprint in many other ways. So the things that fortunately now it's actually proven that making people pay an extra nickel or dime, 5 cents or 10 cents for a plastic bag, and in some states totally making plastic bags illegal is a huge difference because now you could tell from the beaches and the rivers that there's a reduction of plastic bags. So all of those things are definitely making an impact. And there's so many more things for us to also reduce our carbon footprint. Like I now just travel with the belongings I have in my bags. I used to have a whole bedroom full of clothes and shoes because I worked in fashion and in luxury in New York City, and you always have to look the part and dress the part. But for the most part, if I'm in New York and say I need something for an event, I can just go to any of the 100 thrift shops or vintage shops and buy circular. And I also shop at ThreadUp online. This outfit, I wanted like a 100% cotton jumper, and it somehow popped up, and it's a brand I never knew, but it's like made in Kansas City, 100% cotton. And I wear it all the time and get compliments on it all the time. And it was like $20. So
What?
on,
I'm looking
on
what?
ThreadUp, yes.
I'm looking for 100% cotton. What was the brand?
Oh, it's
Do you remember? That's
something.
okay. We
I'll
can
text it to you later,
talk
but it's
about
like
it later.
city. It's some sort of like workwear.
Wow. It's so
But
hard to find 100% anything anymore.
this is what's great with ThreadUp. Now I'm doing an infomercial for ThreadUp because you can search by fabric. So it eliminates all of the other polyester and other fabrics. You can search for 100% cashmere, 100% cotton, 100% linen. And that's all I wear because it's healthier for you. And even socks. So you could find 100% cotton socks. And that's what I wear.
Yes, up, sponsor us. Is there a reason? So let's talk really quickly about why 100% cotton is the way to go, or why you choose to go that way.
Because polyester is basically fossil fuels, and plastic is basically fossil fuels as well. So you're, as someone who I do hot yoga regularly, and the fact that I'm sweating and opening up my pores and then reabsorbing toxins into my body when I'm trying to be healthy is a big problem. And actually, yoga didn't start with stretch latex spandex pants like a lot of people wear right now. It started out in India, Thailand, Indonesia, Bali, those places where it was loose, light cotton clothing that was worn for yoga. And so this whole fashion movement with sports and yoga worn by everyone now, it's like a leisure wear. People wear it everywhere, became a trend, but also the materials that they're using are not healthy for us.
Yeah, have you been paying attention to, isn't there something that came out with Lululemon? Like the toxins, I don't know what's going on TikTok, but just like the studies are coming out, and I think people are becoming more and more aware of the effect that the latex and like spandex and everything is having on our, and hormone disrupting, is that right?
Hormone disrupting. And so now all of a sudden women are less fertile. So there's inhibitors in what they call it, polyfluorocarbons, PFCs. They now call forever chemicals. And even like our jog bras, our protective armor, so-called, when we work out for our breasts, not only is it toxic if it has polyester, but also disrupts our circulation. So when you're trying to detox and release your toxins, and then you have a tight bra covering your breast area, you're confining all of that and you're not allowing it to release. And I also discovered that through hot yoga, because when I would wear a tight athletic bra, I would literally faint. Like I couldn't make it to the end of the class. But when I wore tank tops or looser tops, I made it to the class. So there was something about the oxygen being deprived, and also other nutrients and other hormones and things that, and where your body is trying to heal you. And then you're disrupting it with that inappropriate clothing.
Wow. Yeah, that really, because I've been going to hot yoga and I definitely have some tight bras that I need to swap out and try this. So before we let you go, just I'm really curious, like what alternative healing modalities you are using in your life. If there's anything that's really working for you right now that you wish more people knew about, you wish we were talking about more, that the science really supports.
While I was in Tulum, I did a lot of temazcal, which is an hour long plus sweat lodge that is ceremonial. And you do it with singing and chanting. So it's also detoxing. So sauna in multiple cultures is a thing. And it's proven to increase life expectancy by at least 7 years or something like that. There's some data. It depends on how frequently you do it. Also, I've gone mostly plant-based. And the reason I say mostly is I will eat, if somebody is in front of me and inviting me to dinner and there's nothing else on the table, I will eat it because I don't want to starve. But also, there's a big Ayurvedic eating practice, which is not to eat anything that's been dead more than 30 days, which kind of eliminates things that have been frozen or preserved or have preservatives in them. So I try to eat as healthy as possible, which is just
What's
normal.
the, sorry, what's the like, what's the process behind not, or what's the thought, the idea behind not eating something that's been dead for more than 30 days?
Supposedly, the Vedics believe that it takes away your energy instead of giving you energy. So food that's alive and fresh gives you energy, and food that's not takes away your energy. And even microwaving food basically kills anything in the food in terms of what's chi or life force. I do energy healing now. It's something I also learned in Tulum, so I practice it. And I'm very sensitive to energy of people around me, and also energy of living things. So whatever I can do to increase my energy levels and my health, I do.
Thank you so much for sharing your amazing insights with us and your story. And it's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us today, Cecilia.
All right. Thank you, Ari.